In this lesson, we'll learn how to customize the appearance of a stroke using the Width tool. Alright, so in the previous lesson, we walked through the stroke panel and we learned about how we can customize our stroke using some of the options in that panel. Now, there's actually another new tool to Illustrator CS5 that's going to allow us to customize our strokes even further. And this tool is called the Width tool. Now the Width tool is over here with our other reshaping tools. You can see here it's at the top of this stack, and the keyboard shortcut for that is Shift W. So let me go ahead and select that tool at this point and zoom in on some of these objects here. Now what the Width tool is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to add what's known as a width point to our path. And let me just go ahead and beef this path up, beef this stroke up just a little bit so we can see what's going on. And we'll zoom in here on this path, and I'm going to come in here and add a width point to it simply by mousing over the path. Notice that my cursor changes and a little plus sign appears next to it. And I'm just going to click on the path and then pull away from the path, dragging away from it. You can see here that we're pulling out two handles from this new width point, and we're actually specifying the width of that path with those handles. You can see here as those handles are pulled out how the stroke reacts. We can actually move this width point along the path as well just by clicking and dragging into whatever position we want that to be in. So let me just go ahead and drag in another width point here, and I want you to notice that after I've dragged this other width point in, the center of it's filled in blue, but this one's white. That's because we just created this one. It's actually currently selected. So we can actually come over here and select both of these width points by holding down our Shift key. Now with both of these width points selected, we could actually just click and drag and move them both the exact same distance along our path. Just like so. We could also delete these width points by hitting our backspace key or the delete key. Now let me go ahead and pull out another kind of width point here. Up until now we've been looking at width points with uniform widths. Now we can also pull out a width point that has a non-uniform width, and I'm going to do that here just by clicking with my Alt key pressed, and I'm going to pull away. So let me just click with the Alt key pressed, and you can see here how I'm adjusting the width only on one side of our path. So we can create non-uniform widths in this fashion just by holding down the Alt key to adjust each handle independently. Now it's important to understand that these handles aren't the same as Bezier handles. Remember, Bezier handles control the curves of a path. These width point handles actually control the width of our path. Now, let's just say that we actually created a width point that we like here, and we want to make a copy of this width point. Now, we can do that just simply by selecting our width point, holding down the Alt key, and dragging away from it. And you can see here that I've created a copy of that width point here. Now, I want to show you different states for our width points. Right now, all of our width points are continuous, meaning there's space in between each one. Let me come over here and drag this width point all the way into this width point next to it. And you can see here how the stroke reacts to those new positions for our width points. What we've done is we've created discontinuous width points here. So in mousing over these, you can see here that the width point that we drug over and on top of another one, as we mouse over them, it's showing us the handles for that width point. So that width point is actually on top. If we wanted to look at the handles for the width point below that, we can actually mouse out a little further, and you can see here that it gives us the handles for that one as well. Now, we've moved handles around, we've moved width points around just simply by clicking on one and dragging, or clicking on multiple width points and dragging, but we can actually move these in one other fashion. Let me go ahead and select this width point right here, and I want to hold down my Shift key as I move it. You can see here how the other width points are moving in relation to the path. We're adjusting their positions proportionately with our path. So there's a few different ways that you can actually move width points along your path. Now, up until now, we've actually just been clicking and dragging out width points and doing that really without a whole lot of precision. Now, we can actually control the dimensions of our width points with a lot more precision than we have up until now. Let me just go ahead and double click on this width point, and you'll see that we open the width point edit dialog. And in this dialog, we can actually control exactly how far each handle is away from our path. And you can see here we have a total width as well. We can actually link both of these sides together just by hitting this little chain link button right here. And now as we adjust one of these sides, the other side is going to adjust as well. So you can see here how we can control the sides of our width point with precision through this width point edit dialog. Let me go ahead and hit OK on this. And I'm going to go ahead and create another discontinuous width point here just by pulling this width point into this one on the far right. Now, let me just show you how that dialog changes for a discontinuous width point. By double-clicking there, you can see here now we have options for both of these width points. We have our incoming width point here on the left, and we have our outgoing width point here on the right. Now there's an option down here at the bottom for single width only. So let me show you what that does. If we were to select that for the incoming width point, you're going to see that it disregards the outgoing width point. And likewise, if we select it for the outgoing width point, it's going to disregard the incoming. So a couple of different ways you can exactly specify the dimensions for both kinds of width points, being a continuous and a discontinuous. So let me just go ahead and click OK on that. And I want to come down here now and take a look at another object. Now, up until now, we've just been dealing with that basic open path. Now, we can actually apply customize stroke widths to multiple strokes on an object. Let me go ahead and grab our appearance panel so I can show you how this works. We'll just go ahead and pull that out from the dock, stretch it down a little bit, and let's go ahead and customize this first stroke. Let's make it a little heavier. Let's jump that up to about 6 points, and let's go ahead and duplicate that here. And now for this stroke that's on top, let's go ahead and shrink that down a little bit, and let's give that a different color. Let's give it maybe this orange color. Maybe we need to shrink that down just a little more. Alright, so I'll zoom in on that. Now notice here that I have our orange stroke currently selected in our appearance panel. Let me grab my stroke width tool, and with that stroke selected, I can actually come in and make custom changes to just that stroke as it sits on our object. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on each of these sides here. And as I'm doing this, notice how the stroke width points are actually being picked up on by our smart guides. And you can see that the smart guides are actually going to help us align these width points to key areas of our object, which is actually pretty useful here for positioning these width points in the center of an edge of our object. So let's go ahead and add another one here. Tweak that a little bit. Okay, so now let's say that we have made some changes to this stroke here and created a custom stroke width for this object, or at least one of the strokes on this object. And maybe we want to save this stroke width for use on additional objects. Well, Adobe's actually given us the ability to do just that. Let me come up here and take a look at our control panel. And notice we have this area right here where it's giving us sort of a preview of the custom stroke width that we've created. We also have this same area here in our stroke panel. If we fly that out, and it's down here at the bottom. Now, this area is called a stroke width profile. Now, if we click this little arrow next to this, you can scroll down here and see that Illustrator ships with several default stroke width profiles, and we've also got some buttons down here. This first button on the left is going to be to save your stroke width profile to this dialog. We have another one here to actually remove our stroke width profile, and then this third button is actually going to reset your stroke width profiles back to normal. So notice also here that there is a uniform option here at the top. We can actually click that and select it to send our stroke back to its default state. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that here because I like this one, and let's go ahead and save this. So I'm going to come in here and hit the save button. And notice that we get a dialog prompting us to name our variable width profile. So let's just call this one frame 1. Alright, so we've saved our stroke width profile, and let's come out and draw another object here. Let me go ahead and just grab my rectangle tool with the keyboard shortcut M, draw in another object here, and let's just clear the stroke from this. Let's go ahead and clear the appearance of it so we've got just a path. Let's just apply a basic black stroke to that. Alright, so coming up here, you can see here that right now we're set to the uniform stroke option, but we can actually drop this down, come down to the bottom, and find our custom stroke width profile and apply that. Now remember, we talked about the stroke weight being the widest portion of our stroke, regardless of if there's a custom stroke width applied to it. So right now we have our stroke weight set at 1 point. Let's go ahead and beef that up a little bit. And you can see here how this custom stroke width profile looks on this other object. It doesn't look quite the same. Now, I want to show you one other item that has to do with variable width profiles. And let's just come up here and select this first path we were working with. And notice it looks sort of like an arrow and in the direction that we've set these width points to on this path. We can actually change that direction simply by hitting this little button right here. This is the flip along button. So I'll go ahead and hit that here, and you can see that we're flipping this stroke along the path. Now, if this stroke had different sides to it, meaning we've created non-uniform width points, we could actually flip it across as well right here with this button. So you can see here we haven't created much change there because the width points that we created for this stroke were actually fairly similar, but we can actually flip that along the path with that button there as well. So in this lesson we've learned about the new stroke width tool here in Illustrator CS5. In the next lesson we're going to pick up where we're leaving off, and we're going to talk about managing effects in the appearance panel.